Hey Luma, it's Denise. Let's knit this hat. For your complete list of supplies and more information, visit the website, and special thanks to Scarlet Royale for the round fabric technique. Now, first things first, the setup. I'll be using 6 stitch markers starting right here by the anchor peg and placing one every 4th peg all the way till I get to the back where you'll see the white one. And I need you guys to pay close attention to these colors because they will be key to understanding the pattern. We're using a single strand of worsted weight yarn, and I'm going to secure it to the anchor peg with a simple knot. As always, you can use a slip knot if that's more comfortable, and then we're going to wrap all 24 pegs. We're knitting flat, so after we wrap and turn, we're going to knit that last peg and tighten the stitch, come back, wrap around, and knit that stitch again. We're now going in the opposite direction. Continue knitting all of the pegs. Once you are back at the front and you knit off peg 1, which is right here, you're done with your cast on and you're ready to go on to that first half of the wedge, and I'm going to call that going from short to long, and you'll see what I mean. You're going to start at this first stitch marker and then work your way to the second one and go back. Then you're going to go past that second one to the third one, go back. Go past all of those to the 4th and go back. Go to stitch marker 5 and go back, and then to 6 and go back. It looks like this. Here's a visual. The bottom number is the stitch marker. Alright, let's knit. So we're here at the first stitch marker and we're going to knit until we get to the second one, which is the orange stitch marker. And when we get there, right here, at number 2, you're going to take your working yarn and wrap and turn. And you're going to leave that there because it's like a placeholder. And you're going to knit your way back to the first stitch marker. Alright, right here. And once you get there, you're going to wrap and turn. And you can slip that stitch, in other words, skip that first one if you want a neater edge. It's okay, it's not a major. So remember that you're going to knit past that placeholder you have. It lets you know where you left off, and you're here gonna come here to this one. So you're going to knit 2 together, which means you take those bottom 2 over the top and knit off, and then keep knitting because now your new target is that 3rd stitch marker. And when you get there, remember you're not going to go from the front. You're going to take your working yarn and you're going to go behind that stitch marker, wrap and turn, and work your way back to the first stitch marker, which is the red one on peg 1. Once you get there, you knit that one off and now you turn. And if you want to tighten your stitches, you can do this right here. And then knit your way from here to your 4th stitch marker. So you're going to go past the 2nd, past the 3rd, which is where you had the placeholder. It lets you know where you left off, and you're on your way now to the 4th stitch marker, which is here. You wrap and turn and head back to stitch 1, because you always, after you wrap and turn on a short to long, you head back to that first peg right there with the first stitch marker. And now you're going to turn around and you're going to go past all of these. You're going to be looking for your placeholder, which is here. You're going to do the knit 2 together and go ahead and go to the next one. right? I think you got the pattern, right? And you're going to go here, wrap and turn, and where you headed, you know, back to peg 1, which is where your stitch marker 1 is. So keep knitting until you get there. And then you're going to come here, go past that one to your last stitch marker and back, and then come back and finish here on peg 24. Then you need to head back to that first stitch marker, but don't forget after a few rows to take the knot off the anchor peg. Then just keep knitting. After you knit off that last peg, you're done with the first half. You're ready for your other half of the wedge, which I will call going from long to short. Here's a visual to give you this idea. We're going to start off by knitting all the way to peg 6 and then do the opposite that we've been doing. So here's your peg. You're going to knit to 6 right here, leave a placeholder, go back to 1, then go to the 5th one, leave a placeholder and go back, then to the 4th, go back, 3, go back, 2, go back, and then you're going to go all the way back to the last peg, knit, and come back. Alright, let's knit to stitch marker number 6 to start off the other half of this wedge. On stitch marker 6 right here, you're going to wrap and turn and head back to stitch marker number 1. So go past all of these stitch markers, you're heading back home to stitch marker 1, which is on peg 1. Alright, so I knit off stitch marker 1 after leaving a placeholder right here on stitch marker 6. So now from here 1, my next target is the 5th one here, and then I'm going to knit back to 1, and then my next one will be here. Alright, so let's knit. You can slip or not slip that first peg. Once you're back at that first one and you've left a placeholder on 2 through 6, then it's now time to knit the row. So you can slip or not slip that first peg and knit your way back to peg 24. After you knit off 24, you're ready to go back and you can skip or slip or not that stitch and head back to your peg 1, stitch marker 1. Once you knit off peg 1 right here with stitch marker 1, you're done with your first wedge and it looks like this. Now all you do is start the process again. You're going to go with the short to long, and here is a chart, a visual to look at, and then you just do the long to short, and that'll complete another wedge. You're going to need a total of 9 wedges, so you repeat the process 8 more times. To make the hat larger, just use a larger loom, add more pegs in multiples of 4, and make more wedges. Once you're done knitting your wedges, you're ready for the bind off. So get your working yarn and wrap the first 2 pegs. You're starting your bind off, knit off, and you're going to take the loop off peg 2, put it on the first peg, tighten your stitch, knit off, and move that loop over to the next peg. Now you've already bind off your first one. From this point on, you're only going to wrap the second peg, knit off, take the loop off that peg and move it to the first one, tighten the loop, knit off, and take that loop and move it over, and now you're done with 2 pegs. So just continue this 2 peg process until you're at the second to last. So you're knitting off, move the loop over to the first peg, knit off, and move that loop over to the second peg, and now that 2 peg process again. When you're at the last 2 pegs, wrap them both and knit off, move the loop over, knit off, and you're done. Take the working yarn and wrap it around the loom 1 time, and take your scissors and cut. That's going to leave you a long tail that you can work with. And now take the fabric and make sure that you stretch all of your stitches, otherwise they will look funny and they won't be the right size. So make sure you go through all of the fabric and stretch all of your stitches. Now I want you to look at this edge. It's the cast off edge. It's nice and neat. The cast on, not so much. So go to one edge of your work and you can start to tighten the loops. That's what I'm going to do. You don't have to do this. This just makes it easier for the sewing process. If you don't do it, you can still sew your 2 sides together. So I'm going to go all the way to the end where you'll see the drawstring that's left over, and this is where things get a little tricky, things get a little tight. So pay close attention to what I'm doing. I am finding where I can bring the rest of it. There's a knot right here that you have to loosen up for you to pull the rest of the drawstring. If you can't manage this, make a knot and tie and just cut the excess string. But your best option is to just untighten that knot, and you could see it right here where if you pull, you can just see that. Just pull that drawstring out of that edge, and you see where everything is tightening up, right? It's only because there's that knot there that doesn't need to be there. So once you loosen up the knot, the string will pull, and plus you can just pull it out of that last loop right there, and there you have it, and your cast on edge is nice and tight. Like I said, you can just make a knot and cut the excess string if you can't manage to get the drawstring to pull out. Now we're ready to sew the 2 sides together. So cut the edge so that you can go ahead and thread a needle. Bring the 2 sides together, and we're going to connect them right here on the tip. So insert your needle and pull on the string, and now we're going to go from one side, go upward, and then to the other side, bring your needle up, and you can see that it's basically going from side to side, and I'm not even touching the actual loops on the edge. Instead, I'm going to the next one that's next to it, so that the edge, which I don't want to show very much, is on the inside of the hat. That's why you see that I go past the edge to the loop on the side, and when you pull them together, it's gonna kind of like disappear onto the back side. If you keep your rows really nice and together, then it won't show up very much. I didn't do that because I did want the row to show a little bit, only because I have like a line, lines going through each edge, and so I did kind of want it to show up. Once you're finished bringing all of those sides together, and it's a nice clean round fabric, now you want to close the top. And to close the top, it just works better to do that on the inside. So that side is done, and now for the top, I'm going to pinch the sides together like this, and then just sew it that way. You can sew however is going to work best for you to close the top. I wanted it to have kind of like a little star on the top. It didn't work exactly the way I wanted it to, but it got close enough to what I was aiming for. It ended up, I ended up sewing it, and instead of having 4 sides, it only had 3. So again, do it as best as it's going to work for you. You just need to close the top, basically. So here's mine, and now I bring my needle back up, and I'm going to continue to bring those 3 sides together a little better. The next step is completely optional. I decided I wanted to remove the curls from my edging, and so I got my steam iron, put it on my second to last temperature, filled it with water, and then steamed the curl section of the project, and for a little bit. Then with my hand I would just flatten out the curls, go back, hit it again, with the understanding that I'm not ironing the fabric, I'm steaming it, and then it's so low temperature I can, with my hand, flatten it out. Now that's the inside of it. I turned it around, and right here where I did my sewing, I steamed it a little as well, not too much because I want it to look like the rest of it, and then turned it into the inside again and flattened that area. That's it. Now put it aside and let's make the brim. Again, get a single strand of yarn, secure it to the anchor peg, and we're going to wrap 7 pegs. When you reach the last one, go ahead and knit off. Then you're going to tighten that stitch, and we're going to wrap and turn. We're knitting flat. And once you are done knitting these 7 pegs, that will be your cast on, and you'll be ready to start knitting row 1. For row 1, I did add some stitch markers because I'm doing a rip stitch, so I'm going to knit, purl, knit, purl, knit, purl, knit, and back. You can choose to add more pegs to make the brim wider. Alright, let's knit. So we start with a U-wrap, knit, half wrap, and knit off, and then take the working yarn and you're going to put it under the existing loop. With the hook, scoop up, create a new loop, take the old loop off, put the new one on, and pull. Now a knit stitch, again, half wrap, knit off, and another purl. Put the yarn under, scoop it up, create a new loop, take the old one off, put the new one on, and pull. And do that 2-stitch pattern again, knit. Here we're going to do a purl, and you're going to end this row with a knit. If you decide to do more pegs, make sure that you're ending with a knit stitch, and then turn around and repeat. Knit, purl, knit, purl, knit, and purl, and end with a knit. Now I did 99 stitches. I want you to see though that these stitches, when you look at them, they look funny and they're, you know, crunched up, so you see 2 inches, but when you stretch the stitches, first the pearls will disappear, so it looks like it's just stitches. You don't see a rib stitch, it just looks like stockinette stitch. And once you pull those stitches and you measure, you see that I have almost 1.5 inches more. So like I said, for 99 rows, I had a brim of 22 inches. So you need 9 rows for every 2 inches. You want to increase your brim. All right, now once you're finished, bring that first peg over to the one next to it and knit off, and do the same with the other end. Bring it over and add it to that next stitch and knit off, and now you have 5 pegs with stitches, and we're going to do the basic bind off. So we wrap the second peg, bring it over, knit off, and bring that loop from peg 1 to the peg next to it, and wrap the next peg. Again, we're doing the basic bind off. Bring it back to peg 1, knit off, and then you're going to take the loop off that peg and bring it over. And now you have the last few pegs to do, and then you'll be done with your bind off. So here are the last 2. Wrap that second peg, knit off, bring it over to the first peg and knit off, and you are done. You can now get your scissors and cut, leaving, you know, enough of a long tail. Alright, so just like before, this is optional. You don't need to do it, but 2 things. One, don't worry about how this looks here in the end. We're going to sew that in so you don't have to worry about it, and we're going to bring the 2 and connect them. But here I'm going to tighten these loose stitches. So like before, there's a knot on this end, and I'm just going to pull it out from the beginning, and then I'm going to go ahead and tighten these stitches just to neaten it up. You don't have to do this. This is optional. I just like to have a clean edge even when I'm going to sew and it's going to disappear. I still like to have it nice and neat. Alright, so now you need to go ahead and get your needle, and we're going to sew, and you'll see that both sides of this brim look the same. See that? So it doesn't matter which side. Just when you connect, make sure that you are connecting and you don't have a bend in the brim, unless you want it that way. I mean, that could be interesting, right? Alright, so you thread your needle, and first we're going to fix this little end right here from that cast off so that it's nice and neat. See? Gone. That little open loop that was there. And then bring the other side, and together we're going to bring these 2 edges. And then just like before, we're going to knit side to side. I mean sew side to side, sorry. Now personally, I wanted to reinforce mine, so I went ahead and used the other end where I had leftover yarn, and I'm going to reinforce it and give it a nice finish. Then weave in my end, get my scissors cut, and I'm done. Next, I'm going to create the pleats. So in between each wedge, I'm going to pinch the fabric to create that pleat, and secure it with a locking stitch marker. You can use any kind of sewing pin. You can use a pearl pin or a safety pin or whatever you have that will secure the pleat in place. And how large, how deep your pleat is going to depend on how large your brim is. You might have to make some adjustments as you sew your two parts together. So once you've done that and you have your 9 pleats, or whatever number of wedges you have, that's the number of pleats you will secure. Then you can get your brim and align the two parts where you brought your pieces together, so that that'll be the back part of your hat. And now with matching yarn and a threaded needle, we're gonna sew this together. So put it as best as you can just at the beginning, and then thread your needle, and again you're gonna anchor that brim to the top of the hat right here where you sewed the parts together. And so you're going to create a knot to secure your thread, and I started off with about 40 inches of a single strand of yarn, and I had to more than midway I had to add more yarn. So you can only make it so long, and then you're going to have to add some yarn later on, and you're going to do this exact thing that I'm doing right now to attach my strand of yarn to the hat. You're going to do the same thing, and once you've anchored that, now you can then continue to sew the hat. Basic sewing, nothing magical, nothing super advanced. I'm just going from one side to the other, and not only am I sewing the brim to the hat, but I'm also going to secure that pleat that I did. Alright, so just keep sewing. Once you're finished sewing the hat, go ahead and make a knot and secure that thread and cut the excess yarn. Inspect the entire hat to make sure that you didn't miss any spots, and then you're done. You can just look at the hat and use this piece of yarn to put a puff puff or a bead like I did. There is a video for this, and I'll put a link in the description. Thank you Carol, Valerie, and Clarissa for covering the cost of closed captioning. And guys, please share this video. It helps me a lot. Remember to like, comment, and if you haven't already done so, subscribe.